The Earth Diplomatic Center in Geneva gleamed under the morning sun, its crystal spires reaching toward a cloudless sky. Inside the main chamber, United Earth diplomat Olivia Harrison stood before the holographic projections of the Galactic Assembly. Representatives. Their alien forms, some insectoid, others almost crystalline, flickered with impatience as they awaited her response. Ambassador Harrison, the central figure, spoke, its voice translated into a buzzing approximation of human. Speech. The Galactic Assembly has presented our terms. 47 species have joined our coalition. All have prospered under our guidance. Your species will submit to our authority, cease expansion beyond your designated zones, and contribute resources according to our quotas. Olivia adjusted her formal Navy uniform, the silver insignia of Earth catching the light. At 45, she had negotiated with warlords and corporate titans, but never with beings from beyond the solar system. Grand Speaker Zoltos, she replied, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. I thank you for your generous offer. However, Earth and her colonies must respectfully decline. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien languages. Zoltus's gelatinous form pulsed with what she recognized as anger. This is unprecedented, he finally said. Perhaps I failed to make the consequences clear. The Assembly possesses technological capabilities far beyond your understanding. Resistance would be futile? Olivia interrupted with a slight smile. We've heard that line before in our entertainment media. It wasn't convincing then either. She stepped forward, closer to the holographic aliens. Humanity has spent its existence fighting, sometimes against nature, sometimes against itself. We've survived ice ages, plagues, and our own nuclear weapons. We didn't come this far to bow to distant rulers, no matter how advanced. You will reconsider, Zoltos stated, his tone flat. You have 30 Earth days. The holograms vanished, leaving Olivia alone in the chamber. She exhaled slowly, then tapped her communit. They responded exactly as intelligence predicted, she said. Initiate Protocol Themistocles. 200 million kilometers away, the scout ship Pathfinder drifted silently in the shadow of an asteroid. Its matte black hull absorbed, then reflected light, making it nearly invisible against the void. Captain Nikolai Volkov peered at the sensor readings with ice-blue eyes. At 38, his dark hair was already streaked with premature silver, a souvenir from years of high-stress missions. Are you seeing this, Elena? He asked, turning to his communications officer. Elena Reyes leaned closer, her dark curls briefly brushing against his shoulder. A contact sent an unexpected warmth through him. That's the Fifth Fleet movement today, she confirmed, her fingers dancing across the console. They're gathering forces at Junction Point Epsilon. That's less than 3 light years from Nova Terra Colony. Nikolai nodded grimly. The Assembly isn't waiting for their own deadline. They're preparing to attack regardless of our answer. Standard procedure for them, Elena said. According to intelligence reports, they've done this with 12 other species. Show overwhelming force, demand submission, then occupy key worlds until resistance collapses. Except they've never faced humans before, Nikolai replied, allowing himself a tight smile. Their eyes met briefly, and something unspoken passed between them. 3 years working together on the Pathfinder had created a bond that military protocols couldn't fully suppress. We should alert command, Elena said, her voice softer than usual. Not yet. Let's gather more data first. Nikolai's hand briefly covered hers on the console. If we're going to war, we need every advantage. The Pathfinder adjusted its position, thrusters barely whispering in the vacuum. They watched as massive assembly warships emerged from hyperspace, their hulls adorned with the symbols of a dozen alien species. How many ships do you count? Nikolai asked. 217, with more arriving, Elena replied, her voice professional again, despite the lingering warmth of his touch. Their weapons systems are active, but not targeting. They're getting ready for a shock-and-awe campaign, Nikolai said. Classic intimidation tactics. Elena's console chimed softly. Incoming transmission from Earth Command. They've initiated Protocol Themistocles. All scout ships are to continue observation, but maintain communications blackout with colonies. Nikolai nodded. The silent treatment. Psychological warfare at its finest. Do you think it will work? Elena asked, momentarily dropping her professional facade. Nikolai turned to face her fully, noting the concern in her eyes. It will buy us time, and time is what we need most. He hesitated and added, when we get back to Earth, ... Would you consider having dinner? Outside of duty hours, I mean. The unexpected question brought a smile to Elena's face. I thought you'd never ask, Captain. As the Pathfinder continued its silent vigil, the assembly fleet grew larger by the hour. Neither side was backing down. The clock was ticking toward confrontation, and humanity's silence spoke volumes to those who understood the language of defiance. Orbital Research Station. Archimedes hung in Earth's orbit like a silver spiderweb, its delicate-looking struts belying the reinforced metals and composite materials that could withstand micrometeorite impacts. Inside Laboratory 17, Science Officer Marcus Okafor hunched over a workstation, his attention fixed on the alien shield generator salvaged from a disabled assembly probe. Third test sequence initiating, he announced to the empty room. At 34, Marcus had already earned reputation for brilliant, unorthodox thinking. His broad shoulders and athletic build maintained, despite long hours in the lab, contrasted with the stereotype of the wiry scientist. The shield generator hummed to life, projecting a shimmering barrier across the testing chamber. Marcus fired. A standard laser pulse at the shield. It dissipated harmlessly, as expected. He tried a plasma burst again, absorbed without difficulty. Now for something different, he muttered. He adjusted the settings on his testing apparatus and fired. A precisely modulated electromagnetic pulse. The alien shield flickered, then collapsed entirely. Marcus smiled. Got you. The laboratory door slid open. Did you say something? Dr. Samira Patel asked, entering with a tablet in hand. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, revealing high cheekbones and keen brown eyes that noticed everything. I just found our advantage, Marcus replied, gesturing toward the failed shield generator. The assembly's technology is impressive, but it has a critical vulnerability. Their shields can't handle certain M frequencies. It's like they never considered it a threat. Samira approached, standing close enough that Marcus caught the faint scent of jasmine. That's fascinating. Could it be an evolutionary blind spot? My exobiology team has been studying their physiology. Most assembly species evolved with limited electromagnetic perception. Unlike humans, Marcus said, suddenly very aware of her proximity. We've been bathed in Earth's magnetic field for our entire evolutionary history. Precisely. Samira's eyes lit up with intellectual excitement. What's a glaring weakness to us might be literally invisible to them. Their gazes locked for a moment longer than necessary. Marcus cleared his throat. Your exobiology report was brilliant, by the way. I've read it 3 times. A slight blush colored Samira's cheeks. I'm surprised you had time, with everything happening. I make time for important things, he said softly. Before Samira could respond, the station's alert system chimed. All senior research staff report to conference. Room Alpha. Priority message from Earth Command. 10 minutes later, Marcus and Samira sat among 24 of humanity's brightest scientific minds as Admiral Hiroshi Tanaka's hologram appeared before them. Ladies and gentlemen, the Admiral began, his weathered face grave. The assembly has moved up their timetable. Our intelligence indicates they will bypass our sole defenses and strike directly at Nova Terra colony. They expect an easy victory to demonstrate their power. The room remained silent as the implications sank in. Nova Terra is not the soft target they believe it to be, Tanaka continued. Governor Walsh has implemented full defensive protocols. But we need your breakthrough technologies deployed immediately. Dr. Patel, your biological countermeasures against Vespid physiology are approved for field use. Officer Okafor, your shield disruption technique has been prioritized for weapons integration. Marcus and Samira exchanged glances, a mixture of pride and concern passing between them. You have 48 hours before you deploy to Nova Terra. Tanaka concluded, humanity is counting on you. After the briefing, Marcus found Samira in the station's observation dome, staring out at the blue-white curve of Earth below. Scared? He asked, joining her at the viewport. Terrified, she admitted, but also ready, somehow. Like my whole career has been preparing for this moment, Marcus nodded. I know exactly what you mean. He hesitated, then added, since we might be heading into a war zone. Would you have dinner with me tonight? In my quarters? I make a decent pasta. Samira turned to him, a slow smile spreading across her face. I'd like that very much. Later that night, over wine and pasta, two brilliant minds found comfort in each other's arms, stealing precious moments of connection before the storm. On Nova Terra, Governor Diana Walsh stood on the balcony of the Colonial Administrative Center, watching farmers work the fields beyond the main settlement. The colony's 3 moons hung in the daytime sky like silent sentinels. Beautiful, isn't it? Came a deep voice from behind her. Diana turned to see General Takeo Yamamoto, his military. Uniform crisp, despite the planet's humid climate. At 47, the general's presence commanded respect, but his eyes held a softness reserved only for her. What we've built here, Diana agreed. 3 years from virgin soil to a thriving colony. And now the assembly wants to take it all away. Takeo moved to stand beside her, close enough for comfort, but maintaining professional distance where they might be seen. They'll find we're not as vulnerable as they think. The planetary defense grid is fully operational, but powered down to appear inactive. The civilian militia is trained and armed. The orbital platforms are rigged to look abandoned. The perfect trap, Diana said, her voice a mixture of pride and apprehension. And our secret weapon arrives tomorrow, Takeo added. Scientists from Earth with technology that could turn the tide. Diana nodded, then glanced around to ensure they were truly alone. Finding no observers, she allowed herself to briefly lean against the general's solid frame. I couldn't do this without you, Takeo. His arm slipped around her waist, a rare public display. Nova Terra will stand, Diana, and after this is over, perhaps we won't need to hide anymore. She looked up at him, allowing herself to imagine a future beyond crisis and duty. I'd like that. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across Nova Terra's fields, the first assembly scout ships appeared at the edge of the system, their sensors probing for defenses they couldn't see, searching for weaknesses in a colony that refused to yield. Ambassador Jorik of the Luraxi species paced the polished crystal floor of the assembly's central chamber, his elongated limbs moving with predatory grace. His translucent skin pulsed with blue bioluminescence, a sign of extreme agitation. Among his kind, 17 messages sent, he hissed to the assembled representatives. 17 ultimatums delivered to human colonies. And what response have we received? Grand Speaker Zolthus's gelatinous form rippled. None. Precisely, Jorik's voice echoed through the chamber. This silence is unprecedented. Insulting. The Turgians begged for mercy when we deployed our fleet. The Zoraxians surrendered after. A single demonstration of our weaponry. But these humans, he trailed off, mandibles clicking in frustration. Perhaps they are paralyzed with fear, suggested Representative Maldus, a crystalline being whose thoughts traveled through lattice structures rather than neural pathways. No, countered Dr. Korziba, the Assembly xenobiologist. Her insectoid features remained expressionless, but her voice carried concern. My analysis of human historical records suggests another explanation. Their silence is deliberate psychological warfare. When humans prepare for conflict, they often become ... quiet. The chamber fell silent as the implications settled over. The gathered aliens. It changes nothing, Zoltos finally declared. Fleet Commander Tarn will proceed with the Nova Terra operation. One colony subjugated will demonstrate our resolve. The humans will break, as all species eventually do. Fleet Commander Tarn stood on the command deck of the Inevitable Dominance, the flagship of the Assembly's third attack wing. At nearly 9 feet tall, his reptilian body covered in iridescent scales, Tarn cut an imposing figure even among his own Draxid kind. Report, he ordered, yellow eyes narrowing at the tactical display. Nova Terra colony appears defenseless, Commander, his second-in-command replied. Orbital platforms show no power signatures. Planetary defense grid offline. We detect approximately 5,000 human life signs, mostly concentrated in the main settlement. Tarn's mouth curved into what his species considered a smile bearing of razor-sharp teeth. As expected, these humans are farmers, not warriors. They will surrender when they see our might. Sir, his communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from the colony. Tarn straightened, satisfaction evident in his posture. Finally, they wish to surrender before we even fire a shot. Put it through. The holographic display activated, showing a human female with short auburn hair and an expression of calm authority. This is Governor Diana Walsh of Nova Terra, she stated without preamble. We are aware of your presence in our system. Tarn stepped forward. I am Fleet Commander Tarn of the Galactic Assembly. You will. We are not interested in your demands, Walsh interrupted, her voice level. Nova Terra is human territory. You have no authority here. Withdraw immediately. Tarn's scales darkened with anger. You dare? I command 300 warships. Your colony has no functional defenses. Surrender now or face annihilation. Diana Walsh simply smiled. We've left something for you in orbit. Consider it our response. The transmission cut abruptly. Arrogant creatures, Tarn snarled. Scan those derelict platforms again. What did? She mean? Before his crew could respond, proximity alarms screamed across the command deck. The supposedly abandoned orbital platforms had suddenly activated, weapons ports opening like awakening eyes. Impossible. Tarn roared as the first volley of human torpedoes streaked toward his advance ships in the colony's underground command center. Diana Walsh watched the battle unfold on tactical displays, General Yamamoto standing at her side. First wave of torpedoes has hit their mark, Takeo reported. 6 enemy vessels critically damaged. Their formation is breaking. Diana nodded grimly. They expected sheep and found wolves instead. She activated the colony-wide communication system. All citizens. This is Governor Walsh. Operation Silent Thunder is commencing. Proceed to your designated positions. Throughout the colony, civilians moved with practiced efficiency. Farmers revealed hidden weapon caches beneath their fields. Shopkeepers activated defense shields disguised as ordinary buildings. School. Teachers led children to fortified shelters built to withstand orbital bombardment. The militia units are in position, Takeo confirmed, and our reinforcements have arrived from Earth. On cue, Marcus Okafor and Samira Patel entered the command center. looking somewhat disheveled from their hasty interstellar journey. "Governor Walsh, General Yamamoto," Marcus greeted them. "We've brought the shield disruptor prototypes and Dr. Patel's biological countermeasures." Diana gestured them toward an adjacent laboratory. "Get them operational immediately. The assembly's ground forces will deploy once they realize their orbital bombardment is ineffective." As Marcus and Samira hurried to their tasks, Diana turned back to the tactical display. The assembly fleet had recovered from its initial surprise and was regrouping for a coordinated attack. "It's going to get worse before it gets better," she murmured. Takeo's hand found hers beneath the command table, hidden from the others in the room. "We knew it would," he replied softly. "But they still don't understand what they're facing." Diana squeezed his hand, drawing strength from the contact. "They thought our silence meant weakness. They're about to learn what it really means." Takeo finished, his eyes meeting hers with fierce determination. Above them, the skies of Nova Terra lit up with weapons fire as humanity's trap closed around the unsuspecting assembly fleet. The message was being delivered not in words, but in actions, and it was speaking volumes. Dawn broke over the devastated landscape outside Nova Terra's main settlement. The night's orbital battle had scorched vast stretches of farmland, leaving smoking craters where fields of wheat once stood. Despite their superior numbers, the assembly fleet had failed to break through the colony's unexpectedly robust defenses, in a camouflaged hangar 3 miles from the settlement. Lieutenant Freya Nakamura completed her preflight checks on the Peregrine, an experimental stealth fighter designed for deep penetration missions. At 29, Freya was the youngest ace pilot in Earth's defense forces, with reflexes that seemed almost precognitive. "Shield disruptors loaded and calibrated," she confirmed, her nimble fingers dancing across the control panel. "Engine signature dampeners at maximum efficiency." From the adjacent fighter, her wingman Rafael Diaz grinned at her. His curly black hair peeked out from beneath his flight helmet, and the scar across his left cheek crinkled when he smiled. "Just like old times, eh, Freya?" he called over. "Remember when we stole old man Garcia's crop duster back in Brazil?" Freya rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a smile. They had grown up together in the same small town, joined the academy together, and now they were about to fly the most dangerous mission of their lives together. "This is slightly more serious than joyriding, Rafa," she replied, "but the childhood." Nickname softened her words. Their squadron commander approached, interrupting their banter. "Final briefing," she announced. "The Assembly's command ship, the Inevitable Dominance, is coordinating their assault from the dark side of Nova Terra's third moon. Your mission is to penetrate their defenses, deploy the shield disruptors, and transmit targeting data back to our main forces." Freya nodded, suddenly all business. "What about civilian prisoners?" "Intelligence suggested they're taking human captives for study." "Secondary objective," the commander confirmed. "Free them if possible, but the shield disruptors are the priority." As the briefing concluded, Raphael moved to Freya's side. "I've got a bad feeling about this one," he admitted quietly. "You say that before every mission," Freya reminded him. "And I'm still alive," he countered with a wink. Then, more seriously, "Watch your 6 up there. I've been planning to ask you something important when we get back." Freya felt her cheeks warm slightly. After 15 years of friendship, the line between them had been blurring lately into something deeper, something neither had been brave enough to name. "Then I definitely plan on returning," she said with forced lightness. "Curiosity will keep me alive." Minutes later, their fighters streaked silently through Nova Terra's upper atmosphere, cloaking technology, rendering them nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. Aboard the Inevitable Dominance, Fleet Commander Tarn nursed his wounded pride. The initial assault had been a disaster. 19 ships lost, 37 damaged beyond immediate repair. How had these primitive humans prepared such an effective defense? And why had their intelligence been so wrong about Nova Terra's capabilities? Commander, his science officer interrupted. The prisoners have been prepared for interrogation. Tarn nodded grimly and made his way to the detention level. Inside the main cell, 3 human colonists sat restrained in neural suppression chairs. They looked up defiantly as Tarn entered. "I will make this simple," Tarn announced. "Tell me about Nova Terra's defenses, and your deaths will be quick." The oldest prisoner, a weathered farmer with calloused hands, spat on the floor. "We've faced worse than you on Earth. Ever hear of mosquitoes? Nastier bite than anything you've got." Tarn was about to respond when the ship's alarms blared. "What now?" he snarled into his communicator. "Unknown vessels approaching," came the panicked reply. They appeared out of nowhere. The transmission cut off as the first shield disruptor hit the inevitable dominance, sending cascading failures through its defensive systems. Direct hit. Freya shouted as her fighter streaked past the assembly flagship. "Their main shields are down," Raphael's voice crackled through her comm. "Targeting data transmitted to Nova Terra. Our forces are launching the main counterattack now." Freya banked her fighter around for another pass, targeting the ship's sensor arrays. "Moving to secondary objective. Cover me while I—" Her words cut off as energy blasts from the flagship's point defense systems streaked past her cockpit. "Freya," Raphael's voice was tight with concern. "Pull back. They've adapted their targeting algorithms." "Negative," she replied, gritting her teeth as she rolled the fighter to avoid another barrage. "Those prisoners won't survive if we don't get them out now. I'm going in." Before Raphael could protest further, Freya pushed her fighter into a steep dive toward the flagship's hangar bay. The doors were closing rapidly, but she calculated she could make it through with less than a meter to spare. "Freya, wait." Raphael's desperate call came through the static. I love you. Have for years. Don't you dare die before I can say it properly." Despite the danger, a smile spread across Freya's face. "About time you admitted it," she replied, her fighter slipping through the closing hangar doors with bare centimeters to spare. "Now I definitely have to survive this. Catch up when you can, lover boy." As Freya's fighter touched down in the enemy hangar, Raphael circled above, providing cover and distraction, while simultaneously processing what he'd just confessed in, what he thought might be their final moments together. On another part of the massive flagship, alien scientist Vril observed the battle with growing concern. Unlike his military counterparts, Vril belonged to a minority faction within the assembly that advocated for study rather than conquest. His 6-fingered hands moved swiftly over his private console, recording observations. The humans' tactics defied all assembly military doctrine. They used inferior technology in superior ways. They employed unpredictable strategies. And most disturbing of all, they seemed utterly unafraid of death when fighting for their colonies. "Fascinating," he murmured as he watched a lone human fighter breach the flagship's defenses, a suicide mission by assembly standards, yet executed with precision that suggested the pilot fully intended to survive. As alarm klaxons blared throughout the ship, Vril made a decision. He had collected enough data to prove his theory. The assembly had gravely misjudged this species. The question now was whether that knowledge would come too late. The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Assembly had never been so subdued. Where once representatives from 47 species had debated with confidence and authority, now they sat in stunned silence as Fleet Commander Tarn's hologram flickered. Before them, "The Nova Terra campaign has failed," Tarn reported, his scales dulled with exhaustion. 127 ships lost, 89 damaged beyond repair. The remainder are in retreat. Ambassador Jorik's bioluminescence pulsed with disbelief. Impossible. They are one colony. We deployed our largest fleet. They were ready for us, Tarm replied grimly. Every strategy we employed was countered before we executed it. They knew our weaknesses. And he hesitated. The humans have now launched counteroffensives against our outposts in 3 neighboring systems. The chamber erupted in panic. Grand Speaker Zultos struggled to restore order, his gelatinous form quivering with agitation. How could we have misjudged them so severely? Maldus, the crystalline representative, asked when the chamber finally quieted. Dr. Krosiba stepped forward, her insectoid features somehow conveying grim satisfaction despite their alien configuration. I warned of this possibility. Humans evolved as both predator and prey. They understand cooperation like social species, but they fight with the tenacity of apex predators. Their history is filled with examples of smaller forces defeating larger ones through superior strategy, willingness to sacrifice, and absolute refusal to surrender. Then what options remain? Zultos asked, genuine fear evident in his undulating form. A new voice answered, calm, measured, and unmistakably human. Peace remains an option. The chamber turned as one to see Captain Nikolai Volkov entering alongside Elena Reyes. They walked with the confident stride of people accustomed to hostile environments. Captain Nikolai Volkov of Earth, he introduced himself. This is communications. Officer Elena Reyes, we've come to negotiate terms. Terms? Jorik nearly shrieked. You dare speak of terms when your forces are attacking our outposts? Elena stepped forward. Those attacks will cease the moment you recognize human sovereignty and withdraw your forces from our territories. We have no interest in assembly worlds only, in protecting our own. As the debate raged, a smaller, more delicate alien approached the humans. Her name was Natsira, a junior diplomat from the luminary species beings of nearly pure energy contained within humanoid forms of translucent tissue. You could have destroyed the flagship, she said quietly to Nikolai. Instead, your pilot freed our prisoners and left. Why? Nikolai's eyes met hers blue human eyes, gazing into swirling pools of golden light. Lieutenant Nakamura made a choice. She saw a chance to save lives rather than take them. Even enemy lives, Natsira mused. Fascinating. Elena noticed the intensity of their exchange and felt an unexpected pang of jealousy, which she quickly suppressed. This was hardly the time. 3 days later, in a neutral location between assembly and human space, the formal peace negotiations began. The assembly had reluctantly agreed to recognize human independence, an unprecedented concession. In the diplomatic vessel's observation lounge, Nikolai found Natsira staring at the stars. Your people are unlike any the assembly has encountered, she said without turning. You refuse to bend, yet you offer peace rather than pursuing total victory. Nikolai moved to stand beside her. Humanity has learned through bitter experience that total victory often plants the seeds of future conflicts. We want lasting peace. As do I, Natsira replied, her luminous form shifting subtly closer to him. Perhaps I could study your species. More closely ... for diplomatic purposes, of course. Nikolai smiled, but before he could respond, Elena entered the lounge. The final protocols are ready for your signature, Captain, she announced, her professional tone belied by the slight tightening around her eyes as she observed their proximity. Thank you, Elena, Nikolai replied, suddenly aware of the tension. We should talk later about ... dinner. A smile flickered across Elena's face. Yes, I believe we had plans to discuss. As Elena left, Nazira's form pulsed with what might have been amusement. Your human courtship rituals are as complex as your battle strategies. Nikolai laughed. You have no idea. On Nova Terra, the reconstruction had already begun. Fields were being replanted, buildings repaired. In the governor's residence, Diana Walsh stood beside Takeo Yamamoto, watching the first new crop being sown. "The Assembly has formally recognized all human colonies," Diana reported, reading from her tablet. "And apparently, they're requesting cultural exchange programs. They want to understand us better." Takeo slipped his arm around her waist, no longer concerned about who might see. "Understanding is the first step toward peace." Diana leaned into his embrace. "Speaking of steps, I've been thinking about what you said before the battle, about not hiding anymore." Takeo turned to face her fully. And I think Nova Terra could use a proper wedding to celebrate our victory," she replied, her eyes meeting his with both question and answer. Takeo's response was not in words, but in the kiss that followed. Different kind of communication, but no less eloquent. In the research lab at the colony's edge, Marcus Okafor and Samira Patel worked side by side, analyzing alien technology salvaged from the battlefield. "Look at this," Samira exclaimed, pointing to her microscope display. "Their neural interfaces are designed for collective processing. No wonder they couldn't comprehend our individualistic tactics." Marcus looked up from his own work, admiring the excitement in her eyes more than the discovery itself. Their brief, pre-battle romance had blossomed during the crisis, growing stronger under pressure rather than wilting. "We should write a paper," he suggested. "The first human-authored publication on assembly neurobiology." Samira smiled. "Always thinking about research, even after saving a colony." "Not always," Marcus corrected, reaching for her hand. "Sometimes. I think about the xenobiologist who's agreed to share quarters with me despite my horrible soaring." Samira laughed, squeezing his hand. "The sacrifices I make for science." Across the colony, in a small medical facility, Freya Nakamura opened her eyes to find Rafael Diaz dozing in a chair beside her bed. Her injuries from the flagship infiltration had been severe, but not life-threatening. "Hey, sleepyhead," she croaked, her throat dry. Raphael jerked awake, relief flooding his features. "You're back. The doctor said you'd wake up today, but I was starting to worry." "Can't get rid of me that easily," Freya replied with a weak smile. "Especially not after your little confession during the mission." Raphael's face reddened. "About that ... I meant it, you know. Every word." "But if you don't," Freya cut him off by reaching for his hand. 15 years I've waited for you to say it. Don't you dare take it back now." Raphael's smile could have powered the colony grid. "So what happens next?" "First, I heal," Freya said. "Then we figure out what this means for us. One step at a time." "Speaking of steps," Raphael said, reaching into his pocket. "I had this made while you were unconscious." He pulled out a simple ring fashioned from the metal of a downed assembly. "Fighter. Too soon?" Freya's eyes widened, then crinkled with joy. "Just soon enough." In distant space, the massive assembly armada began its withdrawal from human territories. On the bridge of his vessel, alien scientist Vril compiled his final observations on human behavior. His conclusions would revolutionize assembly understanding. Humans define themselves not by their technological advancement, but by their willingness to stand against overwhelming odds. Their silence in the face of threats was not fear, but preparation. Their dispersed colonies operate with surprising autonomy, yet unite instantly against external threats. Most remarkably, they fight fiercely, but offer peace from a position of strength. He paused, considering his final words carefully. Perhaps the assembly has been asking the wrong question. Rather than seeking to subjugate new species, we should ask what we might learn from them. In the case of humans, the lesson is clear. True strength lies not in numbers or technology, but in the unbreakable resolve to remain free. As the last assembly ship disappeared into hyperspace, humanity's colonies continued their work building, growing, living. The silence that had so confounded the aliens was replaced by the sounds of civilization, laughter, construction, music, and conversation. The language of a species that had faced the stars and refused to bend. The universe had just learned an important lesson about humanity. And humanity, in turn, had taken its first steps into a much larger community, not as subjects, but as equals.